Right, as it's Eating Disorder Awareness Week, we're having a little bit of a conversation about some aspects of eating disorders. Just as a quick disclaimer, we all have our own experience of eating disorders, and we're being quite open and honest. So if you feel that this may be triggering to you or may harm you in any way, just either be careful or just don't watch. We don't want anyone to be hurt by this. So I'm Hazel, and I'm 34 and have a history of purging disorder and bulimia. And I've got two people with me here who now can do a quick introduction of themselves.
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm 25, and I've got a history of lots of different diagnoses of certain eating disorders. Never been quite agreed on, but I definitely have an eating disorder and have had for 14 years.
Hi, I'm Christina. As I've said in all of these videos, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I've had anorexia since I was 13, and later on atypical anorexia with sort of purging symptoms as well. And I'm an ambassador for the charity Beat.
So this particular video is focusing on workplace and education settings, and essentially how having an eating disorder has affected our day-to-day lives, I suppose, in a way. So yeah, who wants to start?
You know that I can't contain myself. So I've worked in a corporate environment for the last 14 years. And when I started working at a large insurance company, I was about 18 months out of my inpatient admission, and I was very ill. I had an active eating disorder. I didn't recover from my eating disorder until 2015, and I'm talking around 2008, 2009 here. So I was functioning, but I was not very well, and I was undergoing regular bloods and outpatient treatment because of the frequency of my purging. It was very, very bad. And I worked in an office, and I was quite open with my manager, no one else, because I did not want anyone else to know that I had an eating disorder in case they thought I was weird. And I sort of said to my manager that I struggled with eating in the office. I found managing my weight very difficult. And I was sat in a team that I was next to, a Weight Watchers group, which was fun. And the Weight Watchers group met weekly, and they all stood on scales about that far away from my desk, and they all shouted their weights out. And not only that, they wrote them up on a board, and I had to walk past the board all week, and they had their goal weights, what they weighed now, and how much they were planning to lose. And I was going through a period of weight restoration and blood monitoring at this time. It's quite difficult for me mentally, having people cheering each other on and talking about the calories and everything they were eating. So I spoke to my manager and I said, look, I don't want to ask these people to stop doing what they're doing, because one thing for me, I don't ever want to say to people, you can't do this, you can't, because people are allowed to lose weight, people are allowed to feel uncomfortable in their bodies, that's fine. But I said, can I move? Can I just go and sit in a different room, in a different team, in a different part of the business, so I don't have to deal with this because it's doing my head in? And she just went, I think you're being a bit dramatic, to be honest with you. And I was like, are you joking? And I just had to sit there and put up with it for another year. And eventually I got another job and I moved into a different part of the business, but I hated it. And yeah, people just didn't take it seriously. And now at my workplace, I am the smiling face of mental health, and I talk about mental health all the time. I have to be honest about it, because no one else would be about eating disorders. And I talk to people about how corporate culture, how office culture is very food based, and people think that you are unfriendly if you don't go for team meals and drinks. I know Adam doesn't drink, and it's really difficult. People ask you questions why you don't want to come and drink. Oh, you're in your 20s, why don't you want to come for a meal and a drinks? Because it's awful, it's embarrassing, it's weird if you've got an eating disorder. Doing things at short notice is very difficult. Office cakes.
Yep.
Office cakes.
Every week.
People bring them in. Why don't you want to eat all these muffins and donuts? Because I'll make myself sick afterwards, and I can't. That's the reason. And once I said to someone, sorry, I'll stop in a minute. Once I said to someone, have you thought about people with eating disorders when you do this? It's quite hard for them. And she went, it's okay. I bring in grapes. And I was just like, oh my God.
That doesn't make it any better. I was literally just about to say that after it is, whether it's cakes or fruit, it doesn't make a bloody difference. For me personally, right? I have things that I feel able to eat and things I don't feel able to eat. Yes, some of those might be fruit, but if that's not part of what I plan to eat on that day, I will not be eating it, and I will still feel just as uncomfortable about it. You could bring in bloody celery sticks and I still won't give it. It would still be just as bad. That's how it is with it. It's people don't understand this, and also people's safe and unsafe foods might be completely different. Okay, someone's safe food might be a piece of cake. Someone might hate grapes or bananas. Okay, and this is what people don't quite understand about eating disorders. It's not just a focus on healthy eating. It's so much more than that. And like I said, the office cake culture and meal culture. And I work in the I'd worked. I'll put the past tense on that because I've quit for various reasons. One of them is because it destroyed my well-being. Is the construction industry, and the culture of drinking, male orientated drinking, and going out to the pub after work and everything. It was horrible, and the pressure was so intense to do it. I ended up doing it once, and I was off work for 3 days afterwards because it just killed me. It caused me so much panic and anxiety, and I never went to a works barbecue or work night or a Christmas do or anything. And people kept asking me, "Why aren't you coming? Why aren't you coming?" I said, "If I come, I will just break down. I will not be able to do anything. I won't eat all night. I won't eat for the day before it either, and I probably won't eat much the day after it because that's how my brain works. I might start using behaviors that are really, really damaging for me. So what would you rather? Would you rather me end up really unwell, or would you rather me just have a night off and have a sleep?" And it's amazing how people shut up when you say that, but people just need, and I'm the person then standing up the next day doing a talk about eating disorders awareness, but people still don't understand. And I think it's a cultural thing more than an individual thing. I don't blame any individuals, but cultures within workplaces and offices, and I know education's part of it as well, but it's just so, and education, universities and things are just as bad, and I'll obviously, I know, Hazel, you've got a lot of experience with this as well, but Freshers Week at uni was my idea of hell.
Oh God, yeah.
I went to a club once, never again, and that was sort of the nail in the coffin for my eating disorder, I think, as well.
Yeah, I remember Freshers Week.
I loved Freshers Week, but then
Really?
yeah, but that was because I didn't live at home, and I was just so thrilled to be. I used alcohol to manage my eating disorder, so drinking enormous amounts of alcohol helped me to, help me to eat. Basically, I just couldn't. Once I stopped drinking, then I couldn't eat. But I was like, yeah, I'll have chips and stuff when I'm absolutely wasted.
See, I never used alcohol for my eating disorder, but I did use it to socialize. So Freshers Week did involve a lot of alcohol for me. In fact, university involved a lot of alcohol for me. And then that all became part of the maths of eating, and
yeah, that was a real struggle for me. And my drinking only stopped when I got pregnant, and I haven't drunk since, really.
If I'm honest, though, my university got more messed up by compulsive exercise because it became my top priority. I missed lectures. It probably didn't help that I was studying neurophysiology, but I'd done a few modules in sports science. So in the sports science modules, we had to do the treadmill tests. We had to check our BMIs. We had to check all this stuff. We had this big vat, I can't remember what it's called, but we had a big vat of water you got in that told you your exact fat percentage.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was horrible. I became basically obsessed with exercise, and I missed lectures, and I missed deadlines, and I stopped socializing, and it just completely wrecked my university experience, if I'm perfectly honest.
I was only at uni for 3 months, but it's where my exercise really got bad as well, and it didn't help. I was at Loughborough University, so obviously, that was difficult because the culture there was, so that became really difficult. I was I was only at uni for 3 months, and that's where I ended up going straight to hospital after leaving university with a $7,000 student debt as well for the privilege. But the pressure was just so much, and I was just always seen as an outcast. I made 1 or 2 friends because I didn't drink and I didn't go out in the evenings, and I couldn't because by that time my bowels were destroyed. It was before my stoma, so I was basically incontinent. So I was literally running back from lectures to try and stop myself from making a mess of everywhere. It was such a horrible time. And I remember one day sort of walking back and thinking, am I going to get back to my flat this evening? And then my mum rang one of the head lecturers, who was sort of meant to be my care plan manager, right? Because there was always one sort of lecturer who looked after a certain cohort of students. And he basically ignored my mum's email completely, set up an appointment for about 3 weeks after I'd ended up in hospital, And I ended up actually sending a message to my mum saying, sorry for letting your son down. And my mum just sent one back saying, it's a bit bloody late for that, isn't it? But that's how university was. And sadly, I don't see much difference in the workplace either. People just don't understand it, and they don't understand the severity and how quickly things can happen or how quickly things can go wrong. And the fact that if you go to any office right now, you can guarantee there will be at least a handful of people with an eating disorder. I bet you don't know any of them. Yeah. And that's what's scary, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's much of a sort of, we've all talked about the kind of pressure to take part and to be seen as somebody. I think it's, you know, in an office sort of culture, you're seen as somebody who doesn't want to progress their career if they aren't willing to go for drinks or attend Christmas meals. And you know, I used to find it a very lonely place if I didn't attend things. You know, I'd come in and people would be talking about all the stuff that they'd done on an impromptu couple of drinks after work, and I would have liked to go. You know, sometimes I felt really sad that I wasn't going, just because they were all talking about it and they would talk about it for the next couple of days, and I just used to feel really outside of it, but I couldn't go. And it's only when I started talking about my eating disorder at work that people started to become more inclusive. Then they still forgot all the time. They'd be like, let's go for a curry, and I'd be like, no. But there were times where I had the confidence to then go, well, I won't go. Is there anything else we can do? And then they were like, oh yeah. And so they started to do stuff like go do a quiz where they're having a buffet and things. But the number of kind of rewards. One year I worked in a pensions part of a company, and for our reward for doing like well over the target we achieved, they got us a fish and chip van, and that was it. That was all we got. And I was
my
just
works
like,
did that once.
I didn't have the confidence to say, well, what the fuck do I get? I can't eat that. So I just gave my voucher to my husband, and he had 2 fish and chip meals. And I'd worked just as hard as everybody else. But, you know, I thought if I said to them, I've got an eating disorder, could I have something else? That people would be like, oh God, why are you, you know, you always get people like, oh, we can't talk about anything nowadays. No. You don't want to be the reason it gets cancelled for everybody else. And so it's hard. But, you know, I made the decision to start talking about that, and I do talk about that, and I still work within the same company, and I say, you know, this happened to me with the Weight Watchers thing, this happened to me with the fish and chip van. When you're looking at rewards for your team, don't just bring in a box of donuts. How about you bring in something that everyone can enjoy?
Yeah, I did that. I did that once with our workplace as well. It was actually just before I left. They did we were working on a construction project over a number of miles, and they did a race the trace thing where it was basically every bit of activity you did equated to points, etc. Now, for someone with an exercise addiction is not good. So I very quickly, when that was announced, I actually I basically did a send to all email, because I was a wellbeing lead, so I could do that. I technically couldn't, but I did it anyway, and just said, look, I know this is a fitness challenge. I know this is raising money for charity, but there are people in the business who may have unhealthy relationships with exercise. If this is going to harm you, do not do it. But people just don't understand that. They did it. Oh, it's a brilliant idea. Everyone needs to do more exercise. No, they don't. It's just, and I talked about this already, and I'd done awareness talks about it and everything, and they still forget. And I don't blame them, because it's just the culture we live in, right? But it can become so difficult to be seen like you're going against it and you're not participating, you're not joining in, you're not being part of the greater good, if you like, just because you actually need to make real accommodations and adaptations to suit what is going to keep you healthy and well.
It's the culture, isn't it? Going back to what we were talking about before, isn't it? You know, people unfortunately have an image in their head of an eating disorder is Nikki Graham, which is, you know, it's a very sad story. But that's what, when you say to someone eating disorder, they think, you don't look like that, you must be fine. And they just forget that it exists, and they don't understand, you know, stats wise, 8% of people have anorexia. So 92% of people with an eating disorder don't look like that. And people just don't, the media needs to work harder to educate people to understand that eating disorders happen any person, any shape, any weight. So then more people can be more inclusive and more thoughtful about what they're doing in the workplace and in education settings as well.